Hey guys, podcast question for AJ and Dr. J. Just curious how you guys balance the selfishness required to get good or great at something with selflessness, trying to cultivate friends and family and maintain that. Thanks. See ya.
Wow.
Whoa, that is very relevant to the selfishness conversation we've had on this podcast. So, Mike and Andrew, hopefully we've already sort of answered that question.
I think we did. If
right?
we were to add, I think so, but what if we added like a 1 minute?
I want to listen to it one more time too.
Hey guys, podcast question for AJ and Dr. J. Just curious how you guys balance the selfishness required to get good or great at something with selflessness, trying to cultivate friends and family and maintain that. Thanks. See ya.
Okay, so you want to start? I have a good idea of what I was thinking.
If you have a good idea, go ahead. I know we covered a lot of selfishness stuff, but I think we could add something a little more specific to his question.
I think it depends. The answer to that would depend a little bit on what specific thing he's talking about. Is he thinking about just the selfishness required to become a better person and spend time on yourself, like, by yourself, reading, meditating, whatever it is? Or is he talking about like getting better on a dirt bike? Because then you have to kind of think about the bigger picture of what's important. My family is important. Is riding this dirt bike serving my family in any way? No, unless you're learning the lessons of making yourself a better human by riding that dirt bike, then that's adding to the family. So I guess that's how I'd weigh it out in my head, right? Like whatever activity or thing that I'm doing that I'm trying to get better at, if it's flying a plane, riding a dirt bike, or just trying to become smarter by reading books, whatever it is, what value is it adding to the big picture, the family, the wife, the kids? Because then you can justify the selfishness, and it's good selfishness at that point.
Yeah. Is the selfishness just self-serving, or is it serving the greater good or the greater good of the family? And so the way that I would look at it would be probably similar to you, but maybe a little different, where I would want to know if it took, and let's say we're just making an assumption here that let's say riding is to you perceived as selfish. If you riding puts you in a better headspace to come home, and let's just we talked about how riding is oftentimes like meditation. It's like taking a gummy, right? So we talk about riding and the value it provides. Well, what if that value makes you become a more calm man, a more at peace man, and then that peaceful man comes home on a Saturday night, and I'm like, wow, I get my peaceful husband, or I get my peaceful dad. Now all of a sudden, that selfish act actually isn't so selfish, because now it serves the greater good of the family. So even though you might be taking time from the family, and time is valuable, well, what kind of impact does this have on you? Because the truth is too, that if you just do everything and do selfless, then all of a sudden you start to not be in the right mindset and the right mood to deliver and be the best husband or the best, father.
What time ratio?
It's
a appropriate, I wonder. Moving target, obviously.
It's a pendulum. I always think pendulum. Like you're just always moving. So you're going to move in one direction where you're going to ride maybe 2 days a week. And then you're going to say, oh, wow, I didn't really need maybe 2 days a week. So maybe the pendulum shifts back to one, but it's a moving target. Not everything is always like an absolute answer or is always the right answer every single time. And that's why it's always in flux.
Hey guys, Merry Christmas Eve. Tonight we're picking one lucky subscriber inside of the Moto Academy app, and I'm going to fly into your hometown for a weekend of private one-on-one moto training. It's going to be epic. So instead of doing a trip giveaway where we fly you into us, I'm going to fly somewhere. And it can be anywhere in the world, because guess what? Allie, myself, and our daughter Millie are going to travel all over the world in 2024 for the world tour. And we're going to visit a lucky subscriber. All you have to do is be in the app tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, club.themotoacademy.com. See you guys in the live stream, picking somebody at 6 p.m. Okay, good luck, guys.
I was just listening to a Jay Shetty podcast. Maybe I've talked about this on here at some point, where he was talking about the experimentation, in a sense, of him and his wife spending time long distance and living away from each other. like that's how the relationship started, like where it was like 6 months apart or 3 months apart or a month apart. And then what he found is that after experimenting with all different times away and or time with the wife and time away in a week period, he said that he thinks that 2 days a week, 2 nights a week was the ideal time of time by yourself and then time with your significant other for him. That could change for everybody, but I've thought that was interesting because I've done the same with Allie, where I've gone away for weeks at a time, gone away for a day, I've gone away for you name it. And now what I've found is I agree with that. If you're taking a 7-day week, I think 2 nights a week, although it might sound extreme to some people, I think that's a fair amount of time to be away, to be by yourself, to be able to be the best possible person when you are with that person.
Yeah, and I can speak real strongly to this because my wife still has her condo and I've got my place, and often she'll go check on it once a week. We usually are at that cadence of about 1 to 2 days a week where she's not with me. And I will tell you that when she leaves, I'll actually go to, for 8 years, as crazy as this sounds, and you can call me out on this if you ever ask her. I don't know if I've ever missed it once. My guess is I missed it once or twice, but out of 8 years of her leaving my house, I always go to the upstairs picture window. She stops as she's pulling out. She stops in front of the window. I wave to her and then I point towards my heart and then I point it towards her. She does the same thing back to me. And so I miss her when she leaves. And then when she comes, I always make sure I greet her in a very excited way. If I'm sitting at the computer, get your ass off the computer, go down and greet her, like show her an appreciation for you to come back. And what's funny is I don't even have to try to do it because it's naturally what happens. I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, it's been 2 days. It feels like a week. And so that has served my relationship. And if you ask me what I think is one of the top 3 things that has served my relationship, it is that. And I think that sometimes we take things for granted, right? If you live in a really big house, sometimes you're going to take it for granted. I used to have a Ferrari. I used to take that thing for granted. If you told me I could start that thing up right now, what I used to do sometimes, dude, I actually respected the hell out of that thing. I would sometimes literally in my garage have my neighbor come over, Nate, Nate.
Yeah.
I would have him come over. We would literally just sit with 2 chairs and I would just start the car up and just let it
great.
It had
Might as well.
Had this sick exhaust.
If you have it, enjoy it. Start it up, just listen to it.
But I also made sure I didn't drive it all the time, because I didn't appreciate it when I did. There were times where I would drive it like 2-3 days in a row. I'm like, dude, you do not appreciate this thing. I'm like, you're a dick. You're a straight up dick. You're not driving this car. And I wouldn't. And there were sometimes I would literally punish myself and I'd be like, you're not driving this car. Like, sorry, dude, you're not driving this car.
And I think the balance for everybody is going to be different. The balance for everybody is going to be different based on your situation. But I think that's a good question. And it's a move, and I would agree that it is an always moving target, because when you talk about balance, like what is balance? You're kind of, there's no such thing. Yeah. Right? You're
just like success.
Your focus is where your intention lies, where your attention is, and wherever your attention goes, there's everything else kind of gets left in the dust. So there's not much balance. You're sort of just doing this through life in a way.
I think the most important part is the fact that I even considered asking the question.
Right.
Just asking the question alone.
As long as you're reflecting, so AKA asking the questions on a regular basis, you will find the appropriate amount of time to spend being selfish and then being with your family.
Yeah, and that's why I the other day bought a domain.
That's a high level. That's high level.
Super high level. Super conscious. I bought a domain the other day called Pause and Ponder. Haven't done anything with it yet. I just bought it. I'm going to turn it into a little mini business I'm going to test drive. But I thought about it and I woke up one day and I was like, oh my God, most of what I do is getting people to stop. Don't forget what the pause is. Pause means you're going from being unconscious to conscious, meaning like you're awakening for a second and being, like you said, the observer. And then ponder is just to ask yourself a simple question. Like, am I balanced? What am I focusing on? What's my vibe? What am I feeling? Should I be doing something different right now? Like whatever it is. If you it took anything from this podcast and you just got better at pausing more frequently, which I actually have one client who's so flat out all the time. I literally have a black graphic that I'll send him with the pause marks on it. I'll send him that to remind him to stop. And then sometimes just ask yourself a question. Just check in with yourself.
Yeah. Isn't it like definition of meditation is to observe, right? And that's what meditation is. So meditation doesn't have to be, like meditation, you could be with your eyes open, walking down the street, and you could be having these thoughts, step back, observe them. That's meditating. As long as you're reflecting, whatever you want to call it, you're able to not attach these emotions to the thoughts that are coming up.
No, you're not identifying with your thoughts. You're kind of like just breaking free.
It's a simple concept, really.
Super simple.
It's a very simple concept. It's just it's an ongoing, lifelong practice for anybody, no matter how high level you are. And step one is being able to observe, period. Right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't ever really get that first step, right? A lot of people live and die, and I don't think are ever really conscious for any amount of time.
For sure.
But once you have once you have enough to be able to ask that question even and understand this answer that we're giving, I'd say you're on a good path. If you guys enjoyed this podcast clip and you want to listen to full episodes, make sure you go download them on Spotify and Apple Music. If you want to watch full episodes or be a person that sends in your own video submission, go to club.themotoacademy.com and subscribe to join the Moto Academy family today.